Why don't we start? Amazing. Okay, first question.
Okay, I'm going to assume that everyone's met yet. Is there a way to tell, Zach?
Yeah. So we have three answers for A and two answers for B.
Okay, so pretty much for this question, it is B. Bottom-up processing is information that begins with the sensory receptors and it works our way up to the brain. So therefore, when Maggie was just hearing the individual notes at the beginning of the song before even recognizing the melody, that would be bottom-up processing. Top-down processing would be Maggie recognizing the melody of the song because top-down processing is the information guided by the higher level mental processes as we construct perceptions, drawing on our experiences and expectations. So knowing the song would be top-down processing. And then parallel processing is just using the ability to process multiple aspects of a stimulus at once.
All right, next question.
Okay, is everyone good?
I'm turning off responses now.
Okay, so this one is C. This is rods. So rods are the structure that help you see in the dark and process things in the dark. So cones would be what you see, what helps you see in the light. So during the daylight, during the daytime, that's your cones are working harder than your rods would be. The cornea is just the clear outer layer that's on the outside of the eye, and that helps with focus. And then the cochlea is just a structure in your ear.
All right, next one. All right, turning off responses in three, two, one. All right, two for
Alrighty.
A, one for B, and three for C.
Alrighty. So this answer is C. Once again, it is top-down processing because you have that prior knowledge slash context that your best friend was taking a exam in their favorite class that they most likely study for because it is their favorite class. So, like I said, top-down processing is just information guided by the higher mental processes as we use like our past experience and knowledge to help form those um, info. Transduction is just the ability to convert outside energy into a form. As I said again, bottom-up processing though is your sensory receptors taking information to your brain. And then parallel processing is being able to process multiple different stimulus at once. Any questions so far about the bottom-up and top-down processing? No? Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Next question. All right. Got one for A, one for C, one for D.
Alrighty, so A is the correct answer, and your book has on page 192 explains all this and has even like a diagram of the eye. So that's also a really helpful piece of information to go look at. But the cornea is the part of the eye that bends light to help provide us focus. And then the pupil is the part that is the small adjustable opening, so therefore, light will enter through the cornea and then pass through the pupil. The iris is just the part of the eye that surrounds the pupil and it controls the size of it. And then the retina is the light sensitive back inner surface of the eye that controls the rods and the cones. And again, page 192 has a really good diagram to help explain all this.
All right, on to the next question. All right, closing off responses.
Okay, so
Everyone
this one,
guessed D.
oh, good. Okay, this one is parallel processing, so you all know that, but just to reiterate what it is, it's pretty much when you're dealing with multiple stimuli at the same time. So by seeing the red and blue lights, in addition to hearing the siren, you put those two things together and you are assuming that you're being pulled over by a cop. But yeah, good job.
All right, I just put the link in the chat again if someone else needs it. All right, responses are closed.
Okay, so this one is false. So the snail-like tube in your inner ear is called the cochlea. The eardrum is just what separates the outer ear from the inner ear.
All right, next question. All right, turning off responses in 3, 2, 1. All right, we got 2 for A, 3 for C, 1 for D.
All right, so the correct answer is C. It is sensorineural hearing loss. And this hearing loss is caused by damage to the Coachella receptor cells or the auditory nerve. So being around the toxic noise of the concert caused the Coachella hair to flatten to cope with the sound. It's just like a the way the book described it. So again, page 209, it explains everything in your textbook in case I'm not doing the greatest job, but and then conduction hearing loss is just caused by damage to the mechanical system that conducts sounds waves to the Coachella. So I would definitely know the difference between the two of those.
All right, on to the next question. Closing down responses now. So we got 1 for A, 2 for B, 1 for D.
Okay, so the correct answer is B. It is endorphins. Nociceptors are just sensory receptors for painful stimuli on the skin. And then placebos are something that appear to be real, but they do not actually have any benefits. And then neurotransmitters were just to throw you guys off.
All right, on to the next question. Please stop us at any time if you have any questions. If we're going too fast, let us know. Oh, wow, you all answered B.
And you guys all got it correct. Yeah, so this is B, perceptual adaptation, which is just the ability to adjust to change sensory input. So, in the beginning, Jimmy was struggling to walk around with the goggles on because it was distorting his vision, but after a while he was able to adapt and be able to walk like normal. So I feel like, yeah, you guys got that one. So good job.
All right, on to the next. Closing down responses. Yep, everyone guessed A.
You guys are killing it now. Okay, so yeah, it is A. Um, yeah, you guys got that. All right. Slay.
All right, responses have been submitted, and most people guessed A.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it is true. So I like to use the example of when you go on a roller coaster and you're up in the air and moving all around and not secure on the ground. You get off of the roller coaster and you feel off balance from being up there and like moving around. And it'll take a few minutes once you get back onto the ground to feel normal again. But kinesthesia will help towards that with your realignment and body position and movement when you're back on the ground. But good job.
All right, so most people have guessed D.
Okay, so this one is actually A. So D, sensory interaction, that's when more than one sense they're interacting with each other. C, kinesthesia, what we just talked about, that's the sense of body position and movement. And then synesthesia is experiencing more than one sense at one time. But yeah, it is A.
Okay, moving on. Closing down responses in 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone guessed B. Which I believe is correct, since positive reinforcement is when you add something or not an aversive stimuli, but a good stimuli to keep that behavior from occurring again. So it is positive reinforcement. Closing it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, this one was a little bit tricky. So the answer to this question is biological, because that's kind of like the innate needs for a human to survive, like eating food and drinking water or resting when they're tired is like a primary reinforcer. And a secondary reinforcer is kind of like something that acts to get a primary response. So like when you get money, you're happy, or like when you get a toy or something, you feel that like belongingness. So biological is the answer. Closing down responses in 3, 2, 1. All right. So the answer to this one is D. Good job, everyone. Y'all get it right. Yay. So yes, learning is when there's a change in behavior, and that behavior is relatively permanent, and it's due to some outside experience. So good job, everyone. You want to learn. Yay. Closing down responses in 3, 2, 1. All right, so this is kind of 50-50. Most people guessed A, which is the correct answer. Remember, because in classical conditioning, it's kind of like the pairing of the stimuli. So remember, think back to Pavlov's experiment where he paired the bell to the food, and how like once the bell was sound, then the dog started to salivate without the presence of the food. So that's classical conditioning. Whereas operant conditioning, you see more in like your daily life with like parenting skills and like punishing and reinforcing a child's behavior. So that's more operant conditioning. So the answer is A. All right, turning off responses in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so 3 people answered A and 2 answered B. And I'm gonna tell you, it's not A like you would expect it to. Yes, it does produce a biological response at some point, but there's something else that occurs before that to happen. So it's B is the correct answer, because initially it produces no reaction because there's a neutral stimulus. So like in Pavlov's experiment, when he signals the bell and the dog does not salivate, that's the neutral stimulus. But then once it gets paired with the food and then just the bell alone, then it produces that biological response. And then it becomes the conditioned stimulus. So, and also make sure you remember like that kind of like equation where it's like unconditioned stimulus to conditions to an unconditioned response, and then there's the neutral stimulus that turns to the conditioned stimulus, and then conditioned stimulus to conditioned response. So it's kind of like a mathematical, like logical steps for learning for classical conditioning. So yeah. Moving down responses in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Yes, everyone guessed it right. It is extinction. So yeah, I mean, something usually when something is paired to a stimulus and then all of a sudden they forget it, not forget, but it isn't presented. So then that behavior and response comes extinct, but then it comes back at some point. So it's not forget, it's just not presented for a while. So yeah, extinction. Turning them off in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so everyone got it right. It's spontaneous recovery, which is paired with extinction. So when extinction occurs, but then the behavior comes back, that's because spontaneous recovery, because it kind of just happens out of nowhere. It's not really explained. So yeah, it's spontaneous recovery. Turning it off in 3, 2, 1. All right. Yes, most people guessed the right answer, which is C, variable ratio. Someone want to talk about that?
Yeah, do you all need an explanation? Do you all want more help?
I can talk about that real quick.
Yeah, do you want to do like a short one?
Okay, so pretty much fixed means that there's going to be like it's going to be on schedule versus variable where it's like unpredictable. And then ratio is the number of responses that an individual will do. And interval is like the passage of time. So winning the lottery would be a variable ratio because it's a number amount of responses. So like, you're scratching off like whatever, like scratches or I don't do the lottery, but like you know what I'm talking about. But it's also it's unpredictable. You're not going to win every time. So therefore it's going to be variable. And since there's an X number of like responses, it's going to be ratio. Does that make
Amazing.
sense? It's easy to think of it as like a 2x2 square. And just thinking of examples for each one to like go back and like compare and contrast the all 4 different schedules too.
All right, we're gonna move on. All right, turning off responses in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this was a split question, 2 on A and 2 on B. So it's not learning, it is modeling. Because remember, it's Bobo doll experiment. So Albert Bandura conducted a study where he had an adult figure record a video of themselves kind of beating up the doll, and then a child watched that video. And then once they placed that child in the room with the same doll, we saw that the child did the same thing as the adult did. So that explains modeling behavior. All right, next one. All right, turning off responses in 3, 2, 1. All right, yeah, most people said B, which is correct. Learning that events go together, which is basically just how association is, like when you associate two things that go together. Like when you hear the ice cream truck noise, then you're probably gonna get ice cream. So it's an associative learning event. All right, turn off responses in 3, 2, 1. Okay, yeah, so this is a tricky question because names and scientists can be very difficult. So it's something you have to just like rudimentally learn yourself. So behaviorism has to do with Skinner. This is due to the Skinner box. Anyone knows that? We're kind of like a rat or a pigeon pecked or touched like a button in order to get food. So that had to do with like the behavior, like pleasure box. So we know Pavlov has to do with the dog experiment, which does have to do with learning, but not exactly behaviorism. And Freud, we know, is psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic theory. And Fechner is someone you'll learn about if you are a psych major and go on to 210 to 11. So yeah. All right, closing down responses in 3, 2, 1. So two people chose C and 3 chose A.
Okay, so the answer to this one is going to be C. So, like, A would not be a valid scientific response because good, bad, and neutral are all subjective things and not objective that we could, like, physically name. Catastrophes, significant life changes, and daily events are the most specific of those answers that I gave you there. And those are what it's listed in your book. And so that's going to be the answer here. Yeah.
All right, closing it down in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, most picked A.
Good. So yes, if you remember, the sympathetic nervous system is going to be activating the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic is what's going to like get you back to normal after that, bring you back down, and bring your adrenaline levels and everything back down. And if you need any help with autonomic, I like to think of that as automatic, and I often accidentally write it as that because that's what like controls your organs like automatically without you thinking about it, your lungs breathing, your stomach digesting, things like that. So
All right, closing it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone pick D.
Okay, good. So you all remember, I'm just gonna go over the general adaptation syndrome stages really quickly again. Stage 1 is going to be alarm reaction. Stage 2 is resistance, when you gotta go a little bit longer than you thought you would. Phase 3, exhaustion. You're done. You're ready to go to bed. Me right now.
All right, moving on. All right, closing it in 3, 2, 1. So most people picked A.
Okay, so there were actually two kind of examples in the book, and it was not cancer. It was mainly HIV and AIDS. And then the other one is going to be heart disease. And I did not put that on here because I didn't want to trip you all up. But HIV, AIDS, and heart disease kind of worked in the same way, with the fact that stress takes a toll on the immune system and does not allow the immune system to act as effectively against diseases like HIV and AIDS and heart disease, which allow those to develop faster, further, stronger, because the body is not ready to fight it off.
Amazing. All right, closing it in 4, 3, 2, 1. Yep, everyone picked B.
You guys are geniuses. Good. Just had to make sure she wasn't going to trip you up tomorrow or whenever the test is.
All right, closing it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we had a split vote between C and D.
Okay, so this in particular is going to be D, catharsis. And I say that because I was thinking more directly, you write all of the things that are going wrong in your life in the plate and you smash it, right? That's not exactly the stress reaction, because in that moment your sympathetic nervous system is not up and running and things like that. But in catharsis, it is like a very high energy input into trying to get those emotions out some way. Yeah.
All right. All right, 3, 2, 1. Most people picked B.
Good. Yeah. So this was another study that was talked about in the book. It was talking about how a very stressful event like 9/11, things like that, where terrorism is a problem and people are worried about it. Cold War is another example that wasn't really studied, but that's just an idea I came up with in my head. But I guarantee you, people lived during the Cold War very stressfully. Like, their hearts are not healthy now. I can guarantee you that. So.
All right, moving on. 4, 3, 2, 1. Yep, everyone pick C.
You guys are geniuses. Problem focused coping is you are going to focus on trying to solve that problem, whereas the other type that was mentioned in the book is emotion focused coping. And so that is going to be, I'm complaining because I'm upset, I'm smashing a plate because I'm irritated, and I'm crying because I'm sad. Not trying to fix the problem.
All right. Closing it down in 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so most people picked A.
Perfect. So it is learned helplessness. And I had a little bit of trouble until this year in psychology of learning, really understanding what this was. But just think of it as literally you feel like you have no control over your situation. You are helpless in that situation. You have learned that what you do does not matter. And that's what learned helplessness is.
All right, closing it down in 4, 3, 2, 1. Yep, everyone guessed A.
No explanation is necessary. Talk to your friends.
Period. Turning it off in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, everyone guessed C.
You guys are so right and so smart. We had this one kind of a little bit earlier, Maddie's question, and you guys got it. Adaptation, adapting to that train horn. It no longer bothers you as much. You don't wake up screaming to it anymore, you know?
All right, next question. Oh, looks like the Menti stopped working. So how about we just start shouting out questions in the chat and the answers if anyone has an answer to this question. Yeah, it is B. Atkinson and Shiffrin. Just another scientist you just have to know. It's not Evan Pavlov. Remember, we talked about classical conditioning. Bandura is not Bandura, and it's not Kohlberg. So yeah, good job. And yep, someone can just shut that out in the chat again too. All right, so the answer to this one is in fact A, and that tendency to recall faces of our own race are more accurate than faces of other races. So the figure found in their textbook kind of has to do with like bias and like perception of like race and skin color. And so yeah, when you see someone of your own race, you're probably gonna think it's the other race did that bad thing because of that like in-group and out-group bias. So for this one, it's D, working to long-term memory. So in the three-stage memory model, remember it starts at kind of like that short term, then it goes into like sensory and then to short term, and that short term goes into working memory once you're able to actively use that information. And then in order to go from working to long term, you kind of have to really like it's encoding. So when you have encoding failure, which is forgetting, you're gonna forget that information. So if you go and take the test and you don't review for the test, that's kind of forgetting the information. So it's working to long-term memory. Yeah, so it's B. So multiple question tests our recognition, which has to do with kind of like the environment around us and just like context clues. And then while filling in our blank tests is recall. So active recall is kind of like if you were to use like flashcards to study specific words, like boom fact, boom another fact, that's recalling the information and not recognition. So the answer is B. Yeah, so the answer is C. Good job, Abby. And that has to do with rehearsal and active maintenance. So for that information to stay in that short term, you kind of have to just like keep working at that information. And attention to novel information kind of goes from sensory to short term, where you're able to like kind of like look at the facts, like writing down the information on like a slideshow is A, but then rehearsing it and actively maintaining it has to do with that working model information. Yeah, the answer is B, automatic processing. So this kind of it's kind of like the free pass that goes straight to like long-term memory. Because if there's information that requires like really effortful learning, it has to go through all the stages of models. But since it's automatically processed, it doesn't require that attention and conscious thought. It's kind of like, oh, like we know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, so how can you forget that when it's automatically processed? Yeah, so the answer to this one is D, the hippocampus. And it's another part of the limbic system. And how I remember it, for if it's recent memories, it's the new hippo on campus. So it has to be the hippocampus for recent memories and like explicit, like declarative facts and information. Hippocampus. Yeah, the answer is A. So with long-term potentiation, it has to do with like crossing that synaptic gap in order for a nerve to fire. And so since it was a brief period of activation, then it goes that is required from that presynaptic activity. And yeah, there's a pause before it's able to fire again, kind of like the all or none response that nerves do, or neurons. Sorry, neurons. All right, so the answer to this one is B, priming. So that's kind of like a callback to like a recent memory. So let's say you have a picture of like your mom or dad in like a frame. So whenever you look at that, you kind of get that like sense of happiness. And so that kind of just has to do with like associations. And like in those like fancy magic shows, when someone convinces you to like think of like I don't know, like an animal, like a zebra, and then they say, oh, what's black and white, blah blah blah. Like, oh, it's zebra, instead of like I don't know, like a black cat. So it's kind of like that priming of information, and they're trying to preloading information into your head. All right, so the answer to this one is C, interrograde amnesia. And someone want to explain this one?
Yeah, so retrograde amnesia is going to be disrupting the ability to like recall past memories. Think retro 80s, 70s past, right? Anterograde is going to be not being able to form new memories. So like everything is constantly new to you. You've never heard the sound of the, refrigerator release ice. So it spooks you every single time. Things like that.
All right, and I think that is the last slide. Y'all killed it.
If y'all have any last questions or you want like us to review any like small topic or anything, please put it in the chat, ask us, whatever. We're gonna hang around for a little bit.
Yeah, also, we're going to send out something to get your attendance if you have not been to a review session before. So stick around while we get that link. Also, for the review packets, we will be sending out the answer keys either tomorrow or Tuesday. So be on the lookout for those. If you have any questions about the review packets, now is the perfect time to ask.
Why is no one? Okay, cool. Did no one have it up? Okay, literally. Hello, everyone. I forgot I was unmuted.
All right, and that link should be And again, only answer this if you have not gone to a review session yet.
Do you all have any last questions or anything?
I'm just going to pause the recording now and take them out.
Yeah.